Hi, I'm Chicago Sports Network.
And I'm American Football Network. And today we bring you our Clemson football preview. But before we get started,
Help me reach 175 subscribers as I am only one subscriber away, so please help me hit that goal by hitting that subscribe button down below. Like this video if you enjoy the content, dislike it if you disagree with us. But as always, make sure that you comment your thoughts and opinions right down below because we interact with every single one of you guys and respond to every single comment. So make sure that you put your thoughts and opinions down below, no matter whose video or channel you are watching.
and if you're watching on my channel, like and subscribe. Help me get to 50 subscribers by the start of the by the end of the college football season. I will leave his link in the description of the video. Also, make sure you check out the podcast and the website. Those links are in the description. Email me if you're interested in joining my fantasy leagues. That's also in the description. And if you want to help support the show, join the Patreon page. Sign up to be a patron for exclusive benefits. I appreciate all of you guys that do that. That is also in the description. So let's get started. So Clemson starts out the season, or we're going to skip the Georgia game. We're going to save that one for last because we don't want some of you guys to leave the video because we spoiled the biggest game of the year. But in week 2, they get South Carolina State at home. This is obviously a win. I don't think anybody would disagree with this. South Carolina State, a bad FCS team, much less a team that's going to come in and compete with a national dominant powerhouse like the Clemson Tigers. An interesting stat from last year: the Clemson offense had a starting field position of 32.5 yard line. That was 17th in the country. I expect the starting field position to be a lot better in this game, and I wouldn't expect the starters to be playing past about 2 or 3 drives into the third quarter. You'll see some of the starters rotating out a lot more than usual in the second quarter, maybe late first quarter.
So, in my opinion of this game, I think it really comes down to this is a win, but the only thing that I have in connection of this game is I went to my first Clemson game at Memorial Stadium against South Carolina State, and they have a pretty good marching band. That's pretty much all I have to say about South Carolina State because, well, they're South Carolina State, so on to the next team.
Real quick about that, Clemson, we love when South Carolina State comes to town because they have the best marching band in the FCS, one of the best nationwide. And it's just a joy to hear them play. They never get up, and the team always fights till the end.
So on to the next game against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. This was a game that last year was a complete and utter devastation of Georgia Tech, 73-7. This was a game that was not close and that made Trevor Lawrence look like a Heisman contender that he was. I think that this is a game that gets a lot closer and that becomes a little bit more competitive under, I think it's the third year under Jeff Mason, is that correct?
Jeff Collins.
Jeff Collins.
Yeah, it's the third or fourth year under him.
So with that third or fourth year and a good quarterback coming in and a good running back and you have a better offense that isn't the triple option, I could find this game interesting up to halftime, but past that I do not see this as a very competitive game because the explosiveness factor is not there for Georgia Tech.
I do think the score is going to be a lot closer. I think Georgia Tech will score more than just 1 or 2 touchdowns. I think they could crack the 14 to 17 range point mark, but I think this game will be the same as last year, just a huge game for DJ. I think this will really make him look like the Heisman contender he is. I think he's going to have a big day as well as these receivers, and Lynn J. Dixon should have a pretty good day on the ground as well, and all those other running backs to go along with him. So the next game, they go on the road to NC State. This is going to be a good game. It's probably going to be a night game. NC State, a good rival of Clemson. Dabo hates Dave Doran. Many ACC coaches do. I expect this to be a fun game. I expect Clemson to pull away late in the fourth quarter. I do fully expect them to win this game. I think DJ has yet another big game. And I think he's able to step up in the big moment like he did last year against Notre Dame and Boston College.
I think that this is an interesting game, and I will give my prediction in a little bit. But I want to start off with that NC State has 19 returning starters, including their quarterback, their top running back, their top 3 wide receivers, and almost all of their top defensive players. They only lost 1 defensive player. So I think that already makes it an interesting match. I think that this is a trap game at a minimum because I think that NC State coming into this game played USF at Mississippi State and Furman. So this is not a hard schedule, a grueling schedule for NC State coming into this game. even though Clemson has to play an improved Georgia Tech team, a very good Georgia team. And yes, they play South Carolina State, but I think that this is a trap game that finishes with a victory for the Wolfpack. I think that this is a game that really changes the momentum of the Tigers season, just like the Pitt game or the Syracuse game in previous seasons. I think that this is a redirection point, and with a newer quarterback, I wouldn't say he's like a freshman to a degree, even though he technically is eligibility wise. I think that he really will have some struggles in this game against a pretty talented NC State defense and an explosive NC State offense. So I have Clemson losing their first game of the year, in my opinion.
Is this NC State defense better than the Notre Dame defense from last year?
Probably not, but I
Okay,
think
so that was the question. That was the question for you. So why is DJ going to struggle against a worse defense when he had big numbers against a Notre Dame defense who is, nobody would disagree, a better defense? I'm sure most NC State fans would even agree with that statement. He really proved himself when he let his team down by 15 points at halftime against Boston College in his first career start, in which he didn't even know until mid afternoon on Thursday before the game that he was going to be the starter when it came out that Trevor Lawrence had COVID. So this is, I mean, I don't think he has any more left to prove, really, from the standpoint that he can show up in big moments. I think he will show up in a big moment against NC State sometime in the fourth quarter, and I think we slowly pull away. I think it's just a bogus statement, just a laughable take that NC State is going to beat Clemson.
Well, I would like to say this. I think Clemson is going 11-1 even if they don't beat NC State. I don't see Clemson going 12-0 just because their schedule has some tougher games like Georgia, at NC State, Boston College, and at Pitt. I think any of those games could be difficult matchups, and they have been proven to be difficult matchups in the past. Look at when Bradley Chubb was with NC State, and I'm not saying that Bradley Chubb is there at NC State, but I am saying this. This DJ is a great talent, but the problem that I have is Clemson does not have a solid running back the way that they did against Notre Dame. I don't really trust Will Shipley because he is a freshman and he is not a ground and pound type guy, and usually those guys struggle more often in their freshman years than not. I don't really like Lynn J. Dixon or any of the other running backs behind him. So I think that there's a big hole right there at the running back position, which could hurt them generally. And with a new left tackle, I think that this Clemson team is very vulnerable early in the season. Even though I think that they are a good team, I think that they are going to struggle against NC State, and NC State's going to pull off the upset.
You did make one false statement. We do not have a new left tackle. We just moved a guy over from left guard to left tackle, or from right tackle to left tackle, and Jordan McFadden, who is the best offensive lineman on this offensive line, and was probably the best offensive lineman from last year. Not a big fan, and Jackson Carman thought he was taken way too high. And Clemson did not have a good running back. They had ETN. They had the name ETN. His name was on the back of the jersey, but that was not ETN playing against Notre Dame. When DJ played, he put up 40 points on the Fighting Irish, for the most yards by an opponent at Notre Dame Stadium. What more does he have to prove that he can step up in big moments?
Well, I would like to say this. Switching from right tackle to left tackle is a lot more complicated than most people like to make it out to be. As a Bears fan, Tevin Jenkins is going through the same struggles, and even though he is leaping up a level, I think that the development from right tackle to left tackle, you have to train your hands, your body, your hips, in the completely opposite motion that you were doing before. But I think we need to get on to the next team, so let's get on to Boston College at a home game. This is the homecoming game for the Tigers, and I think that this is a game bounce back proportion against Boston College. I had that as a win there, even though I think Phil Jakovic played pretty well and pretty sound against the Tigers previously. I think that Phil Jakovic is a little bit overrated and overhyped. Most people think that he is going to be a Heisman contender this year. I do not believe that, so I have this as a win for the Tigers.
Phil Dracovic will, in fact, be a Heisman contender. He is a top 3 quarterback in the ACC. You're just salty because your Notre Dame staff was too ignorant to realize that they kept the wrong guy, let the wrong guy walk out of the room.
Well,
they should have kept Phil Dracovic. Ian Book, nowhere near as good as Phil Dracovic. If they had Phil Dracovic, they might have beaten Clemson the second time around. And this offense and this team overall would definitely be a lot better than they're going to be this year. But this Boston College game is going to be an interesting game from last year, but I do think Clemson beats them a lot by a good bit more than they did last year. I think they get a 10 to 17 point win, maybe a little bit more than that. I think Dracovic struggles a little bit in this game, but not much. I think Clemson is able to contain Zay Flowers, and with the loss of their big tight end from last year, this really hurts them. They don't really have a big threat like that. A bigger target that linebackers can't keep up with speed wise and safeties aren't can't match up physically with. They don't have that kind of guy this year, and so I think Clemson gets the win easily and continues their win streak.
So that ends that game with a bye week, and then you head to one of the easiest matchups of the season. I don't think that there's much to say here. The worst team in the ACC, a game at Syracuse. This team with Dino Babers in 2018 was really good. They were much improved. Dino Babers looked like he was turning around the program. And then after the game against West Virginia in the Camping World Bowl, they've fallen apart. They are just a bad run organization. They are not going to be a good team, and I would not be surprised if Dino Babers is fired after this year.
I'm surprised he's even still with them this year. Like you said, Syracuse by far the worst team in the ACC. Clemson should win this game easily. One thing I would like to point out, though, Clemson did lose at Syracuse on a Friday. They play them on a Friday, October 15th, but they played them Friday the 13th the last time, so I think we should be pretty fine this year. No superstitions or anything to go along with it this year. But that leads us into our next game at Pitt. I think this is going to be a nice win for Clemson. I think it'll be a pretty handily win. I don't think there will be. I don't think Dabo's blood pressure will be very high at all throughout this game. Maybe in the first half, but I think come second half, Clemson is really going to step in. These corners dominated the Pitt receivers last year. They shut Kenny Pickett down. He threw 3 interceptions in last year's game. The defense got significantly worse. I don't think the Clemson offense or the Clemson defense will have a problem against the Pitt Panthers.
Well, I would like to say this. I think that the Pitt Panthers are a team that is almost overrated to a degree just because they win a game or two that they're not supposed to, or be competitive in a game or two that they're not supposed to. I think that this team lost almost all of its defensive starters, is going to struggle. I'm not a big fan of Kenny Pickett. I know a lot of people are, but I don't know where the love is coming from. And I'm not a big fan of Pat Narduzzi at all, so I have this as a massive win for the Tigers, just like it was for Notre Dame last year, beating Pitt 45-3 at Pitt.
Then why did you say earlier in the video at Pitt was going to be a tough game?
I think that it can be a trap game. I think that this is a game.
Is that what you said, though?
I am saying that it can be a trap game.
Answer me. Is that what you said, though?
No, I'm saying.
All right.
I'm saying we can move on. That could be a tough matchup if Pitt does something on their defensive line, which I don't see happening, but could be a tough matchup.
You saw it 7 minutes ago in the video.
Okay, on to the next game, a home game against Florida State. This is a game that if it was 7 years ago, this would be a fun and interesting matchup, but now in 2021, it's sad that they're this bad. So I think that this is a game in which Florida State is walked all over by Clemson. I think the starters are out by halftime.
Florida State, you better look out. Mike Norvell, you better find you another lame excuse to cancel the game because you really pissed Dabo off the last time you did that because Dabo is usually over something in 1 to 2 days. He talked about that the rest of the week. You really pissed him off, and I disagree. I don't think the starters will be out by halftime. I think they should be out by halftime, but I don't think they will. I think the starters play until the start of the fourth quarter. I would not be surprised if Florida State doesn't score. I think they will score, but I think they won't. They're not hitting double-digit points. And Clemson will score at least 50. My score prediction for that game going to be probably like 54-3. They're just going to blow the doors off Florida State. So Florida State, you better come up with another lame excuse to cancel the game. But now they go on the road at Louisville. This is going to be a pretty good game. And like most of the other games against Clemson, it'll be a pretty good game up until about midway through the third quarter or halftime. The last time Clemson went to Louisville, they beat the tar out of the Cardinals. And that was really the growing up moment for Andrew Booth. He was ejected for punching one of the Louisville guys on a punt, and since then, no trouble at all out of him. He has been a really solid corner, just as good as Darian Kendrick. The reason I'm glad we kept Booth I would much rather Kendrick leave than Booth because Kendrick can't stay out of trouble. He's going to end up in jail eventually. So I'm glad that we kept Booth. I think he has a big game, more kind of a revenge game, sort of, at Louisville, where he made the only mistake of his career. Really, Dabo did punish him well, made him ride the bus back instead of the plane ride. So this should be a interesting game until about halftime or midway through the third quarter. But I expect Clemson to win by 10 to 24 points.
I don't even see this being a 10-point game. I think that this is a game that, even though I really like Scott Satterfield after that, I think it was like the 2018 season, they have really struggled, and he has really just declined as a coaching prospect. I think that this is a year that is kind of boom or bust for him. There's a chance he's fired if he does not coach well. If Louisville is better, I think that this could be an interesting game, but I don't see Louisville getting any better, so I have this as a win for Clemson. Heading into the next week against UConn, UConn cares so little about their program that they joined the Big East just for the basketball credits and stuff like that, so this is a win. They don't even care that their football program exists.
Not going to waste any time on this one. Big win, UConn. You will be lucky to get it into the red zone in this game. The next game, they get Wake Forest at home. This will be Military Appreciation Day for the Tigers, most likely. It seems like Wake Forest is usually either the opener for Clemson or Military Appreciation. But with the purple unis on, I expect Clemson to beat the Demon Deacons pretty handily. Sam Hartman is a good quarterback. He just doesn't have the weapons around him. And I think Clemson wins big time here.
I think that this could be an interesting matchup if Sam Hartman's an okay quarterback, but I don't see that being happening with the receivers around him and the running backs and stuff like that. So I have this as a win for Clemson, and I think
one more thing to throw in there. It'll also be Senior Day. Is this the last home game? So the seniors will want to go out on top.
Yeah. So I have that as a win. They're heading into the final week, rivalry week, against the South Carolina Gamecocks. This is a game that has been dominated by each side for about 5-6 years at a minimum, and this rivalry continues to go back and forth, but at the moment it is nowhere near that. It is Clemson dominating South Carolina, and even though you have a new coach, I think that this Shane Beamer experiment is going to be a big mistake and another disappointment, just like Will Muschamp.
Yeah, Clemson owns South Carolina. This will be a big win. They'll win by a ton of points in Columbia. Hopefully they won't get any D batteries thrown at them, as Carolina fans tend to wrap those up in napkins and sling them at players. Not just Clemson players, every players. It's kind of a normal thing up there in Chickenville. But we own you. This is our state. Shane Beamer, you're a terrible coach. You have no coaching experience at all. South Carolina, what are you thinking? Once again, Ray Tanner, a terrible move. But South Carolina is going to get beat pretty bad.
Well, that pretty much wraps up today's video. Make sure that you go check out the Notre Dame prediction.
Are you forgetting the Georgia game?
Oh, the Georgia game! I forgot the Georgia game. I honestly did not do that on purpose. The Georgia game is this. Georgia loses and Clemson wins in week 1. That's pretty much all I have to say.
I agree. The secondary So I've been in an argument with some Georgia fans over YouTube. They just want to say oblivious statements. Every single Georgia fan is incompetent and highly intelligent and intellectual human beings. There's no such thing as a good conversation with a Georgia fan. He tried to tell me all this stuff about how how Georgia has the best run defense in the country. Yeah, maybe you do. But and then he said that Clemson's going to have to throw it on their great secondary. Well, that's the same thing for you, buddy. Georgia, that's good for you. Clemson's run defense is just as good, if not better, and you're going to have to throw it on our good secondary as well. So I see the Tigers winning this game. It's at the end of the day, I think this game is going to come down to coaching. Clemson has the better coaching. Dabo is the much better coach. Kirby Smart will probably make costly decisions that will cost his team the game.
So basically, to put in my 2 cents of my real opinion and not just me saying Clemson's going to win, I think that this is a coming out party for Brian Bursey and Trent Simpson.
If
I
they
think,
haven't already had it.
yeah, I think that Brian Bursey has had a very good career, but I think that this is where the national media starts to recognize him as a true studded star, either in next draft class, not this one, right?
No,
Okay.
he's only a sophomore, so next year he's probably one
Okay.
of top three D, probably the first DN off the board.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he'll be a massive improvement for a team in the NFL, and I just think that this is going to be a game that is closer in points, but obviously Clemson was going to win from the beginning. Same thing with the Miami game against Alabama. I think that even if Derek King is 100% healthy and there's no repercussions from that ACL tear, I think that it will be a boring game, maybe that's a little bit closer than most people expect, in the sense that it's going to be maybe a 14-point game or a 17-point game. But I don't see any reason for Georgia to win this game. If Georgia does win this game, just playing the hypothetical, I think that would kill Clemson's playoff chances because of the devastation that I would do. But we will get to that when we get to that. That pretty much wraps up today's video. Make sure that you go subscribe, like, comment, do all that stuff. Make sure that you subscribe to whichever YouTube channel you haven't, or if you have both, make sure you hit on that notification bell.
And make sure you go subscribe to Chicago Sports Network if you really enjoy, basically white Stephen A. Smith.
Oh,
Knows
wow.
nothing about
Wow.
sports, just talks to hear himself talk. He's a big Notre Dame homer, by the way. So
Says
all
the
you
Clemson
all
fan.
you Irish fans, go sub him up. But that's all I have for you today, guys, and we will see you next time.
Okay, see ya. Bye.